Hello everybody, it's me, Fee, White Zulu, and welcome to another chapter from my life story, from my autobiography, White Zulu. And I am still at college. It's my 6th year there. I did 2 years in Standard 6, second form. Had to repeat that year. I'm now in 5th form, which is Standard 9, and it's 1966, and I'm 16 years old. Back to school and into 5th form on my 16th birthday. We had a few more privileges, a lawn to ourselves, and not too much hassle from the prefects. The work got harder as the pressure was on. We were all going to take our matric the following year, and the subjects we did and all the work applied to that final goal. I coasted along as usual, wrote lots of letters to Andy, and enjoyed myself to the best of my ability when I felt well enough. I was still having to slip away to the sand for a rest now and again, and I had got so used to the routine down there, where I lay in my narrow little hospital bed in the isolation ward, stared out at the mellow brick wall of Francis Bain's house, and pretended I was a princess, and those were the walls of my castle. I worked up quite a saga in my head and imagined myself as chatelaine of this wonderful big castle in the English countryside, with servants, footmen, and a butler, and of course a handsome young prince as my husband. My ideal prince was the young, long-dead pilot in that library book, blonde hair and blue eyes, and a tanned face from all that flying. My heart raced at the very thought of him. I still had my pilot ambitions too. In class, I found I was becoming more and more bored and gazing out of the window all the time. I lived in my own fuzzy, withdrawn world. One day, our geography teacher called me up to the front of class after the bell for lunch had gone. We were alone as the others clattered off down the corridor to eat sausages. "Have you ever had your eyes tested?" she asked me, not unkindly. "No," I replied. "Well, I think you'd better ask your parents to organize an eye test, as I think you might have a problem copying your work down from the board." And she left it at that. During the holidays, I mentioned the test, and it was arranged for first thing the next term. I went to the sand to see Dr. Stripmack, and he told me to put one hand over my eye and read from the chart with the other eye. I looked around for the chart. Eventually, he pointed to it, and I saw the first 2 lines. After I'd called out the letters, he said, "Next line," and I was flummoxed. It was nothing but a blur. The other eye was even worse. I was seriously myopic, short-sighted with an astigmatism in both eyes, and was sent on the sand transport to the optician in Pietermaritzburg, who prescribed a huge, heavy pair of thick Coke bottle bottom glasses for me. The fashion in the mid-60s in South Africa was quite a heavy, square, black frame around the most unflattering, nerdy glasses you could ever have. And that's what I got. The only advantage I had was that Dad had been generous and had splashed out on a pair of photosensitive glasses, which turned dark in the sun and became quite trendy sunglasses. The optometrist was a kind man and saw my deep disappointment at having this massively heavy prescription handed to me. "Will I be able to fly then?" I asked him, when I explained that my ambition was to be a pilot. He shook his head sadly. "Not a hope," he said. "Not with the problems you have with your weak eyesight." I was crushed, devastated. I'd been waiting all this time until I became old enough to go down to Orreby Airport to get my learner's license. Now I'd failed at the first hurdle, the eye test. I was stuck with these hideous glasses, and all it did was add to my absent-minded professor look. I hated the glasses and tried to take them off at every opportunity, but couldn't see a thing without them. Whether it was all that reading during my bout of measles, and I'd strained my eyes irreversibly, or I was just destined to be myopic at puberty, I'll never know. I suspect the former, because of the amount of eye-watering pain I put myself through. In the July holidays, we went as a family to Durban to stay with friends on the Durban Berea. We spent quite a lot of time on the beachfront there, lying on North Beach on our towels and eyeing the lifeguards and the surfers, a completely new and exciting sport which had arrived from California and Hawaii. My older sister, Dine, had turned into a very pretty, flirty girl, and I trailed in her wake as she mixed with post-matric Michaelhouse boys who'd started this newest craze, surfing. These 18-year-olds were just old enough to have their first beaten-up old cars, like Volkswagen Beetles and De Chevaux, and they cut the roofs off so that they could drive around with their long surfboards sticking out. Or they bought roof racks and tied their boards on top, fins up. These demigods paraded along the golden sands and flicked their sun-bleached hair at the girls. We were mesmerized, and I stuck to Dine like glue. We met up with other St. Anne's girls and wore our tiny bikinis to sunbathe in little groups, lying out and baking ourselves in the winter sun. One of the girls was a year ahead of me and thus had been in the same class as me in my first year in second form or standard 6. She had an older brother, 2 years older than I was, at Michaelhouse, and he often joined our group, chatting to Dine in an easy manner while I looked on enviously. This boy was gorgeous. He had blonde, sun-bleached, slightly wavy hair, twinkling blue eyes, and a lovely way of laughing by throwing his head back to expose his long, tanned throat. Diane had several guys interested in her, and she had a knack of putting them all at their ease and attracting a huge amount of their avid attention. Another young man, a school friend of the gorgeous one, was a brother of Diane's best friend, a twin brother. And we became a group of 6, with the 2 of us Ross girls and the 2 brothers and sisters. Sorry, no sisters yet. Those were sorry, I'm getting confused. The sisters were there as well. The St. Anne's girls. Ignore that. We had a great time in the evenings walking along the Marine Parade and visiting all the lovely tacky arcades, which used to festoon the Durban beachfront. Dodgem cars, tombola stalls, and all kinds of games where you threw things and won a prize. The good-looking blonde boy threw a tennis ball at a pile of tat and won a beer mug, which, to my greatest surprise, he handed to me. I was taken aback, as I was the skinny, ugly duckling, trailing along in the wake of my infinitely better-looking older sister, with my huge, heavy, thick glasses falling off my nose all the time. After a wonderful holiday of this, we got back to school. I went up to my dorm, and Joan, the sister of the boy I'd fancied so much, came running up to me. She drew me aside and said, "Tell me, do you like my brother?" I was rendered speechless by her question for a second, as she finished by saying, "Because he likes you." To like somebody meant that they wanted to go steady. Oh my God! It was me he'd liked and not Dine. The beer mug had spoken the truth. "Oh yes," I exclaimed. And she wrote to him, as was the custom, and he began to write to me. I had my first boyfriend. He was a my class boy, very acceptable to my parents, and a spitting image of the imaginary prince, too. Sixth form and matric. Another birthday spent on my first day back at school. But things were different now. I'd broken the record for any known generation of Ross girls reaching matric, and there were a whole lot of new treats I could enjoy. We were allowed to bring in tinned instant coffee and drink it in our own sixth form common room, a corrugated iron shed on breeze blocks outside opposite the gym. We spent all our free time in there making cappuccino by whisking lots of sugar, coffee powder, and a drop of water in our own mugs, which we brought from home. No more slimy, scratched plastic mugs for us. And we could have all the tuck we liked. Biscuits, sweets, and chocolate was stashed away on our own shelves, safe from rats, as, like the voortrekkers did before us, we kept them in old biscuit tins. Best of all was that we could have a bath at night and get straight into bed. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't have frozen feet all night, every night. As sixth formers, we also used the one and only toilet in the big shared bathroom upstairs. So no more trekking through the pitch dark in the middle of the night to go to the loo downstairs in the main corridor. Everybody except me and 2 of my best friends were made prefects, heads of house, and head girls. I was a bit disappointed that I didn't get a cubicle with a wooden door, which my younger cousin had as vice head of house. But at least I had a cubicle to myself with a little study desk and a small goose-necked lamp. I used this to read my library books most of the night. No studying for me. I took advantage of all the privileges and accepted none of the responsibilities which the other girls had, of disciplining the younger girls, or, indeed, setting a good example for the rest of the school. Rather the reverse. I could, and did, do my own thing. I was the bane of my classmates' lives, as I broke all the rules, and they weren't able to tell me off, let alone issue punishments. They didn't like my behaviour and took every opportunity they could to tell me I was a bad reflection on the sixth form in general, but I didn't care. I was my own master. There was a lot of fuss from teachers and classmates about how hard matric work was and how important it was to apply oneself to passing the final exams. But I cruised along, neither revising nor learning anything new. I'd had to abandon my aspirations to be a fighter pilot and had long ago forgotten about wanting to be a vet. I had no ambition other than to sit out my last year of confinement in this meaningless prison and extract as much enjoyment as I could under the circumstances. With my newfound freedom, I could read a now unrestricted quantity of library books to my heart's content, and that's what I did. I wrote letters during prep to my 2 boyfriends at Michael House. I was hopelessly in love with my surfer. He loved me too, and we wrote long, soppy letters to each other every other day. I still wrote to Andy, now telling him every detail of my new boyfriend, Greg. Andy, the good sport that he was thrilled for me and loved to share all the romance I was enjoying. He was genuinely pleased for me and not in the least bit jealous, as I think he knew that we'd never be more than best friends. I didn't know Andy was gay, and neither did he. I think his parents and brother knew, but it was never mentioned in front of me. They didn't accept him as he was and spent all their time trying to change him, but I loved him the way he was. That's all for this time. Hope you enjoyed it. And I want to thank John Moslane very much for putting aside his Friday afternoons to be my producer and create these videos with me. And also to Sean van Vuren for uploading my videos and doing such an excellent job on my YouTube site. And if you want any more information on my other works, the other books I've read, all autobiographical, and they're more photographs, please visit my website at www.whitezulubook.com. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and there's more to come. Goodbye.